to Career Lab Wednesday. I am your host, George Miller. I'm here almost every Wednesday from noon to 1 p.m. Central. And my job while I'm here is to support you to develop in your career. So there's a few ways you can engage. Of course, I love it when you jump directly in here on Zoom with me. I've had more people doing that recently. It's been fun. So I encourage you to jump in on Zoom if you want. But if you do, know that this is being live streamed on LinkedIn and on YouTube. So if you want to remain anonymous, make sure to keep your camera off. So you can engage with me by jumping in directly on this Zoom link. Another way you can do it is to type your questions into the comment section. I've had a lot of fun with those as well, where you type in a question. Doesn't have to stay on topic with what I'm talking about, just anything that's on your heart. And I will take that question and do my best to answer your question and more importantly, facilitate you gaining clarity about taking a meaningful next step in your career. And that often is something that is relational. So you may ask a question about an interview or about your resume, but I will tend to bring in my background and expertise on emotional intelligence and communication. But again, you don't have to try to answer or put in a question that has something to do with the topic. Anything that's on your heart is fair game. So I am excited to talk about today's topic around containment, emotional intelligence, suppression. What are the differences about how we engage with our feelings? And I'll start by saying that I've just never seen this not be the case. We are so well trained to suppress our feelings that it's helpful to be highly skeptical of what we think of as regulation and containment and composure, and to assume that I am probably suppressing feelings and that there's probably a consequence to that. So I'll give some examples about this, but that's what I want to dive into today, that trying to control all of my emotions does not lead to more emotional intelligence, does not lead to a more connectivity with other people. I actually need to allow myself to feel more, whether or not I express that in a meeting or however, that's a different matter. But I need to internally be opening up my ability to be feeling whatever I'm feeling, because it gives me all kinds of valuable data. So many leaders make the mistake that suppression or holding everything down and clamping it in is composure, which I would say composure is more of staying centered while also feeling and in using the feelings to achieve greater insights and opening lines of communication. So suppression might look professional at first, but it disconnects you from your own emotions and ultimately from other people's trust. So we are perfect emotional communication machines, and learning to communicate what we're feeling responsibly, and consider that responsibly communicating feelings does not mean suppressing them. That if I'm suppressing what I'm feeling, that's actually not being responsible. It is shoving down my ability to respond. It's actually limiting my ability to be responsible. And so a helpful thing that I've worked with a lot of people on is to intentionally express more in scenarios that will not have any blowback. It's one of the, we're at this point now, I'm leading six or seven different group coaching environments. Two with my business, two with another business, and then two with the Maharishi International University. And one of the main reasons that we have this group coaching environment is so that people are taking risks in communicating their emotions in a space where they're not going to get fired, where they're not going to, it's not going to blow up into a huge fight with their spouse or whatever. So people get practice with being with their feelings in new ways and communicating that in an environment that's still uncomfortable. It's like going to the gym, and I'm stretching myself, developing new muscles, but doing it in this group context, then people become more aware of their feelings and saying, oh my gosh, I was suppressing so much of what I was feeling that people were having a hard time understanding me at work. I was saying everything logically. I would prepare for a week before this meeting and I'd have all the points down. And then I would clamp it down and go through the points and essentially, turned myself into a robot. And people did not understand me. I was not alive and engaged with the people around me. So even though I'm communicating important information, I'm leaving out some of the most important information, which is my feelings. Yeah. So I hope that's starting to land for you and having you think about possibilities for yourself around emotional containment and integration towards your desired outcomes, and the difference between containment and composure and suppression. So that's what I'm sharing about today. Now, I want to remind everybody who's viewing in, you can join in here directly on this Zoom link. I'd love to work with you one-on-one if you want to do that. And if you are not able to, type your questions into the comment section and I will do my best to answer your questions. You can ask anything career related, from a resume, from how do you have a powerful resume? And resumes are like, writing in that kind of way is not my strong suit. But I have learned how to do it, and it's been incredibly powerful for me. It's a really important process when you are advancing in your career. It's a great way to take stock of yourself and take all the things that you've done in your career so far and boil them down into powerful statements. It's quite a thing for you to do. And I think in some ways I'm really good at helping people with it because it's such a challenge for me. That did not come naturally for me. So I've had to put a lot of work into understanding how to be bottom lined and communicate results. So questions around your resume, I invite those. Questions around interviewing. I love interview questions because it's a relational thing. The biggest mistake that people make is they talk too much. They're not in touch with their fear. They're trying to avoid their fear. So they're trying to brag about themselves in ways that are not really in rapport with the person they're talking to in the interview. So that's a spot. Like in an interview, there's so much containment that you want to do. You want to practice that. But it's not suppression. If you're just going in delivering facts, you might be containing your emotions and oversharing verbally. So you are going to have a better balance in your communication if you allow yourself more emotional expression and more access to your emotions in other environments. So questions around interviewing. I love purpose in your career. Like, how do you know that you're really doing something meaningful? How do you make what you're doing more meaningful? And Yeah, I was talking with Rich Lyons about his book Life is Sales last week. And it was so fun because we're talking about how so much purpose can be harnessed in relationships, which is what sales is all about. And sales is about serving people, about helping people identify meaningful risks for them to take, whether it's buying an application or a consulting project or whatever the sale is, buying a car, like whatever the sale is that you're looking at is, does it really support you in becoming who you want to be? Does it support you individually? Does it support your family? Does it support your company? Whatever that is. So I love questions that have to do with meaning and purpose in your career, because there's so often we jump over meaningful interactions out of avoiding discomfort, avoiding challenging conversations. And so any questions that you might have around meaning in your career and purpose in your career, feel free to ask those. A lot of people have shared things like, I've done all the right things. I've climbed the corporate ladder, and I'm at this point now where I'm wondering, am I going to start my own company? Am I going to retire? But I have this sense that I haven't really done everything I wanted to do. And I don't know what that is. I love those conversations. So any questions that you have, feel free to type them into the comment section or jump in here directly on Zoom. I'm going to jump back to today's topic around emotional intelligence and some of the mistakes that people make when working on containment and composure, and when we don't pay the price of being with the discomfort in this. And we just kind of go unconscious and say, okay, I'm not showing my feelings, so I'm doing the right thing. That happens way more than you might be aware of. So another point I want to make here is that that emotions are contagious. The neuroscience shows this, that emotions are contagious. So if I flatten my emotional landscape, if I suppress and flatten, then people will sense that. And where I might think that I am being contained and professional, a lot of people will read that as uncertainty. They will mistake me trying to suppress my feelings as, oh, George doesn't really know he's not sure. He's still trying to figure it out. Or they might mistake it as distance. A lot of people will mistake no expression of emotion as being distant, as oh, they don't like me. Now, it's not your job to get everybody to like you. I'm not saying that. But you can certainly find ways to be a little more emotionally expressive that will go a long way for your teams, especially if you're more of an analyzer type, somebody who really likes putting together data and like digging in to a project and mapping things out and all of that. And you're just so good at that, digging into things and being in the weeds and really having a deep understanding of how a project is working. Like, that's such a gift of yours. And I want you to learn how to be a little more expressive and show a little more emotion, because for a lot of other people, then that will help them understand you more. They will take that as warmth, as connectivity. And it's not your job to satisfy everybody, but it certainly can be useful to open up the lines of communication a little more emotionally. So that's one another point that I wanted to make here. So when leaders are too calm, they can unintentionally signal distress or a lack of empathy. And so composure means that you're connecting small doses of authentic feeling, concern, enthusiasm, and relief. That you're sharing that in small doses with your team. And sometimes, depending on what your relationship is like with your team, it may be appropriate to be incredibly enthusiastic and to celebrate, etc. So that's the second point that I wanted to make. And before I go into my point three, I want to check in and see if there's any questions. Any questions, you're welcome to come off mute, or you can type into the comments or chat section just to see what it is that you are working on. What's on your heart in your career that you would like to move forward? Reminder, you don't have to try to stay on topic. I will probably tie it back to emotional intelligence anyway. And if you're typing into the comment section, stay with me on it, because you'll often put in something. I'll begin, and you might say, "Oh no, George, I want to go in this direction." So feel free to at any point interrupt me, and I will do my best to support you in developing. So the next point I want to make is around how authenticity builds safety and not chaos. So again, when I am increasingly authentic with my team, that allows people to know who I am and what to anticipate. And if I am suppressing myself, that leads to uncertainty. And the problem with uncertainty is we all make shit up. We make stuff up when we don't know what's going on. Our minds hate that anxiety. Our minds want to be so certain on things. And so when there's gaps, then what we do is we just make stuff up. Oh man, I might even be able to share this video. Oh wait, no, it's going on YouTube, so I can't share the video. But there's a study with the Max Planck Institute from, I don't know, maybe the early 2000s, where they put somebody in a scanner and they run a test, and all the person's doing is choosing between right and left. And what they are able to see is that the brain actually chooses before the person presses the button. So this is disturbing, because what it means is that for 6 to 11 seconds before we make a decision, a conscious decision, we've actually already made the decision. Our unconscious mind has already decided what we're going to do. Ellen Langer does a lot of research on this, on mindfulness. And it's so disturbing to see that, oh my gosh, we are, we think we're conscious human beings, and we are, we have a level of consciousness, but in comparison to our unconscious mind, it's something like 88% of what we're doing throughout the day is unconscious. That's kind of terrifying. So if you're ever feeling out of touch with your fear, you can just remind yourself of that, and that'll give you a jolt of aliveness and anxiety. That's a legit thing. It's like, oh, I could be kind of concerned about that. So I'm saying all this to say that, again, authenticity, if I am not in touch with my feelings, and I am not communicating what's really going on with me effectively to the people around me, there's all kinds of blank spaces, all kinds of gaps. And what people are doing in that time is they're making crap up. They're just making things up because that's what we do. All human beings, we just make stuff up all the time that isn't real, that is not true, not actually what's happening. And so there's a wonderful gift in this. It allows us to do things like drive a car while thinking about some other subject, or drive a car while talking on the phone. When you think about that, that's amazing. We're driving a murder weapon at 60 miles an hour down the highway and having a conversation or thinking philosophical thoughts or whatever. I mean, that's incredible. There was a time when I first started driving, all I could do was just focus on driving. I was like, nobody talk to me. This is terrifying. So there's a reason why that's built into us, that we can be unconscious about things. So it's not a bad thing. It's just how we're wired. It's what we're working with. But it's important to understand that when I'm communicating to people around me, that the more that I can communicate authentically, the more people are going to appreciate that and understand me and where I'm coming from, and not make shit up about what I'm saying. So when leaders share emotion skillfully, they might say, I'm frustrated, and it's really important to me to find a meaningful solution for our client. Like that's in rapport. Oh man, I was thinking about it yesterday, and I'm so glad we're meeting today, because I had some concerns that I really wanted your input on. Like that, so bringing in what's going on with you internally in your meetings, in your interviews, in wherever it is in the conversations that you're having in your career, that will help people identify who you are, understand where you're coming from, and give them more of an idea of how to respond. So authenticity, you know what? I can't even say this. Oh, look at me. See, I'm being kind of a victim. I can't even say that word without going into this other thing. But so when I want to bring in existentialism here. So authenticity, because I hear a lot of people make this mistake, and they're saying, well, I'm just being me. I'm just being authentic. I'm an introvert, or I'm an extrovert. That's a limited way of looking at myself. To say, this is who I am and that's it, that is rigid. It is limiting. Human beings, we are learning and growing and evolving monsters. we continue to develop through our life. And for me to say, that's just who I am, and I want to be authentic to who I am, it's such a mistake that I often see. So what I like about the existentialists is they talk about being true to who you could become. And Kierkegaard, I don't know if he said that. Kierkegaard, Rollo May, many of these thinkers talk about that, how life is a journey and that we are developing, that we're made. If you have follow a certain religious belief, we're made in the image of God, and so we're striving towards that. So authenticity is about being true to who I could become. It's not staying stuck. It's not saying, I'm an introvert, so I'm not going to go out and do any public speaking, or I I don't want to speak up in a meeting because I'm being true to who I am. Yeah, I'm just going to message through Slack or whatever. I'm just going to send emails because that's what my job responsibility is, and that's the kind of person I am. That's a limited way of being, and in the long run, um, that'll cost you big time. So I think it's so helpful to look at authenticity as being true to who I could become. And so then for the emotionally intelligent leader to say, oh my gosh, okay, so yeah, I'm good at suppressing feelings. I might even be good at containing, but being aware of that. But now who might I be becoming? Could I take some risks and share a little more vulnerably in meetings? Maybe I could smile more, simple things like that. Maybe I could make eye contact with people. Oh, yeah. One of my clients has taken this on where they are going into the office and they used to just go to their desk and, in meetings, they would talk with people, etc. But now they are making a point of when they walk in that they are making eye contact deliberately with everybody they see and just acknowledging, like they might not even say hi, but just and it's scary for them. They feel anxiety. They have all kinds of limiting thoughts come up of like, well, who am I to do that? Or somebody's going to think I'm like mad with them, or they're going to think that I'm trying to tell them what to do. They're going to just whatever. All that stuff comes up. And so they're now more aware of what their unconscious mind is just making up that isn't even true. And they're developing their ability to be present while feeling some discomfort, while feeling anxiety. And then lo and behold, they find that people are coming to them and asking questions. And just because they started signaling just these subtle emotional communications, like as a warm smile as they pass somebody, that makes a difference. So I want you looking for just what's right outside of your comfort zone. Oftentimes people will picture a really terrifying thing. Like they'll picture themselves speaking up in a meeting and saying, you know what, I think this whole strategy is failed. And I haven't said anything earlier, but I think we're just wasting time. Da, da, da. So you might kind of picture that and be like, well, yeah, I'm not going to say that. I'll get fired. Okay, cool. Don't say that, but just what's right outside your comfort zone. Maybe it's asking a question in a meeting that you wouldn't have asked before. Saying, I didn't understand something about this. And I guarantee you, there's at least one other person, but probably 5 other people who had the same question, but just didn't ask it. It might not even be conscious of the fact that they have that question. Okay, so that's my run through of emotions today in the workplace. And again, it pretty much goes without saying that we have learned to suppress our feelings and mistake that for responsibility. And we want to gently allow for more emotional expression, and that increases our ability to respond. That actually increases our responsibility, our ability to respond effectively. Well, great. Well, thank you. So I'm gonna pause for a moment here and share a couple ways to connect with me, and also invite any questions. You're welcome to come off mute if you want, or type into the chat or into the comment section. Do know this is being live streamed. I don't think that many employers come and look at this, but do know that. And if you have any questions and you want to remain anonymous, just type it into the chat or into the comment section. I'll do my best to answer those questions. So there's a few ways you can connect with me outside of here. I'm happy to set up a 15 to 20 minute meeting to see if I can help you gain clarity about where you're at in your career development right now, where you're at in life. I'm fine spending some time with you. I love doing that. And often people get the clarity that they want. And sometimes I've had people whose companies provide coaching, but that they didn't really understand what coaching was, and then they decided to take advantage of the coaching at their company, and I think that's fantastic. So I'm happy to help you in whatever way supports you, and if it makes sense for us to look at what a coaching relationship would look like, if we've got a bigger project on hand, then let's do that. And I have been working with people for years now. And I love doing that. And I'm also happy to talk about some of the group coaching that I do. I usually will start somebody with one-on-one coaching and kind of assess where you're at, what your goals are. And sometimes then having a group environment is a fantastic fit because you get to practice your skills, not just with me, but with a group of other like-minded people. So I'm happy to talk about those things. And another thing that can be really useful is the CARE personality assessment. This is the focus of this one is in learning to communicate other personality styles. So that I'm calling it Connect and Thrive. And that's the point of it. I've been getting trained in the DISC profile recently, and that's fascinating. And it's really helpful for me to understand myself and understand, some of the decisions I'm making in my business. Helps me get clarity that way. The CARE personality assessment, or Connect and Thrive, that Jane just shared in the chat there, that is really to help you identify other personality styles. Of course, you're going to first take a personality assessment to know your style. Is like with all this emotional intelligence work, all these soft skills, it always starts with myself first. You always have to understand yourself, because that's the lens that you are looking at the world through. So it's like, if I'm just trying to understand somebody else without understanding myself, it'll never work, or I won't get as much. It certainly, it won't allow me to get as much as I could from understanding another person. So I need to first understand my lens, and that will help me communicate and shift better to other lenses, to the other personality styles. So I've been working for years on being more contained, more data-driven, to slow my pace down, to not scare away analyzer types and other cooperators. And so that's an important thing for me to know. Then if I'm working with more of an energizer type personality, that can be really helpful for me to lean into that side of me and say, like, yeah, like this is going to be so cool. Yeah, we're going to focus on your vision and what you see as possible for yourself. Absolutely. And if it's more of a regulator that I'm talking to, even that, I noticed, because I can see my face on this camera, like, and with talking to a regular, I kind of put on the cooperator, like tilted my head. With a regulator, it's direct, bottom line feedback. You want good results, you will get more in touch with your emotions. You might not like feeling your feelings, but you will like the results that you get. So that's me style shifting right there, knowing that if I'm talking to a regulator, they are results oriented. They want me to own my authority. They want me to be the expert and point out where they can learn and grow. Cooperators, now I'll let myself shift back into cooperator. Cooperators want to know about, how's this going to be for my family, for my team? What's the social impact of this? Is this worth investing And cooperators are, oh man, so many people in healthcare that I'm working with who get into healthcare because they care about people. They want to like make people feel better. And so for me to be able to say, yeah, you're going to need to learn how to put yourself first. Like you've been kind of starving for oxygen on an airplane that's having some issues. So you got to put the oxygen mask on yourself first. And so we'll look at it that way. So anyway, personality styles can be incredibly useful. So there's the link for you to take your assessment, and then a video that will help you identify other personality styles and give you some ideas about ways to communicate, to shift your language when you're speaking with other personality styles. Well, so let me take a look here. If you've got any questions, let me know now. I'm going to start wrapping up. I've got a meeting at 1:00, so I need to get going for that. But let me know any questions that you have, anything that's on your heart. Feel free to come off mute or to type into the comment section what your question is, anything that you're working on. And so I'll do a quick recap here, but feel free to let me know what questions you have, anything on your heart at any moment. So emotional suppression, it's helpful to assume that that's what we're doing in one way or another, is that we are suppressing certain feelings of ours. And that does not really allow us emotional regulation or control, because the emotions will come out one way or another. And so the way to work on it is to practice being with the feelings, practice being with fear, hurt, anger, sadness, and joy. Practice communicating those responsibly. You may want to do that in coaching sessions. You may want to do that in a group coaching environment, so that you become more familiar with responsible communication. That will allow you to have higher emotional intelligence and to be more effective in your communications. It's not about eliminating emotions. It's about using the emotions in rapport, using feelings wisely. And so teams, your teams, your kids, your spouse, your friends, people are going to feel what you don't say. You are going to signal what's going on emotionally, whether or not you want to. And if you really are clamped down on your feelings and you're not sending out any signal, that's going to be mistaken by people most of the time as being disinterested or having a lack of empathy. And so composure means that you're connecting the dots for people, that you're allowing small doses of authentic feeling to come out. You're taking meaningful risks with people, concern, allowing your concern to be known, allowing your enthusiasm to be known, allowing relief to be known. You're allowing yourself to be seen more so that people understand what's going on with you. And the third point is that authenticity builds safety. And so breathing through it, expressing your feelings, and showing a little more and saying to yourself, I'm becoming more expressive. I'm becoming true, authentic to who I could become. I'm not fully formed yet. My personality at this point is something in process. It's not a fixed thing. I can choose to have a growth mindset and take some meaningful risks around sharing more of myself with people. I'm developing my ability to share authentically. And that allows my team to relax more. That allows people to understand who I am and where I'm coming from. That fills in those gaps for people so that they're not making shit up about me. So that's what I want you to do, is just look at what's a way that you can show a little more of yourself. Maybe it's just making some more eye contact in the workplace. Maybe it's smiling a little more. Maybe it's asking a question in a meeting. But lean in to being more authentic and in touch with your feelings. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for joining in. I will be back, and I invite you to take a look at Connect and Thrive, and see what your personality style is. And I start identifying other people in your life and seeing what style they have. And again, if you want to set up a one-to-one with me, I get that a live stream is intimidating, and you might not want to share what you're working on in your career in this format. So feel free to set up a one-to-one with me as well. All right, everybody. Well, blessings. Take care. Know that there's only one of you that has ever existed on the planet, and that it is most important that you be kind and generous with yourself as you lean into more and more of who you can become, and that your feelings are a divine gift and are so core to who you are and how you show up in the world. And so I encourage you to continue developing your relationship with your feelings, knowing that they are a superpower and that they do come with a price of experiencing more discomfort, but it also has you feeling more alive and being more effective. All right, blessings.